You are freezing, not uncomfortable, not chilly, freezing, in a way that modern life has almost completely erased from human experience. The wind cuts through everything. The ground is frozen solid beneath you, and the nearest fire, if there even is one, is smoking, weak, and barely holding on against a wind that wants to snuff it out completely. For most of the Ice Age, this was simply Tuesday. Fire gets all the credit in the story of human survival. But fire alone could never have carried early humans through the brutal cold of glacial Europe and Siberia. Fires die. Wood runs out. Storms extinguish flames in seconds. If your only defense against sub-zero nights was a burning log, you were one bad storm away from death. So ancient humans built an entire second layer of defense, one that had almost nothing to do with flame. And some of it is stranger than anything you'd guess. Let's start with something most people have never even considered: animal fat as a survival tool. Arctic peoples for thousands of years, including groups studied by anthropologists working with Inuit and Sami communities, rubbed thick layers of animal grease directly onto exposed skin. Not for taste, not for ritual, for insulation. Fat blocks wind, slows the rate at which heat escapes the body. Greased face and hands could survive exposure that bare skin simply couldn't. Now picture it. A hunter kneeling beside a butchered reindeer, working handfuls of pale yellow fat into his cheeks and fingers before heading back out into the wind. It looks almost comical from the outside. It was, in reality, a piece of applied physics passed down through generations, refined the same way any survival technology gets refined, through people who died from not doing it, and people who lived because they did. But the biggest breakthrough wasn't grease. It was thread. Archaeologist Olga Sofer spent years studying tiny, almost invisible impressions preserved in fired clay at Dolní Věstonice, a site in the modern Czech Republic dated to roughly 27,000 years ago. Under magnification, she found something remarkable pressed into the surface of ancient clay fragments: the woven texture of cordage and textiles. Twisted plant fibers, net-like patterns, evidence of actual weaving technology tens of thousands of years earlier than anyone had assumed it existed. This mattered enormously, because a woven fitted garment does something a draped animal hide simply cannot. It traps a layer of warm air against the body, seals gaps at the wrists, the neck, the waist. The difference between a loose hide thrown over the shoulders and a tailored sewn garment is the difference between survivable cold and lethal cold, and there's skeletal evidence backing this up. At the Sungir site in Russia, archaeologists uncovered burials of Upper Paleolithic humans dated to around 34,000 years ago, dressed in clothing so elaborate that thousands of ivory beads had been sewn in careful rows across what would have been trousers, shirts, and hats. The beads themselves survived. The fabric and hide didn't, but their exact positioning, row after row after row, only makes sense if they were stitched onto fitted, tailored clothing. This wasn't a fur cloak thrown over the shoulders. This was engineered cold-weather clothing, designed with the same logic a modern outdoor brand would use: layer, seal, trap warmth. So how did they actually make it? Bone needles. Tiny, painstakingly carved-eyed needles, some barely a few centimeters long, have been found at sites across Ice Age Europe and Siberia. Sewing with an eyed needle allows for tight, wind-resistant seams instead of loosely tied hide flaps. Researcher Ian Gilligan, who has spent much of his career studying the relationship between clothing and human evolution, has argued that this shift toward fitted, sewn clothing wasn't just a convenience. It may have been one of the key technologies that allowed modern humans to expand into brutally cold regions that Neanderthals, who show far less evidence of sewn clothing, may have struggled to survive in for as long. Now let's reconstruct a full night using every layer of this system together. The sun goes down over a frozen steppe. Temperatures are already well below freezing, and they're about to drop further. A small group huddles inside a shelter built into the side of a hill, its frame made from mammoth bones and covered in stitched hide. Fat has been rubbed onto exposed skin hours earlier. Everyone is dressed in fitted, layered clothing sewn with bone needles, sealed at the wrists and ankles with cordage. And here's the detail that surprises people most: they sleep in a pile. literally. Bodies pressed close together, sharing heat the same way a colony of emperor penguins does in Antarctica today. Group sleeping wasn't a comfort. It was thermal engineering using the only heat source that never runs out of fuel: other people. Here's the counterintuitive twist. We tend to imagine our ancestors as constantly hovering around fires, totally dependent on flame for survival. But the archaeological record tells a different story. Fire was one tool among several, and arguably not even the most important one for surviving extreme cold over the long term. Clothing, insulation, and shared body heat did the heavy lifting for hours at a time, especially overnight. When a fire couldn't be tended constantly without someone staying awake to feed it, we even have direct physical evidence of just how sophisticated this clothing system eventually became. In 1991, hikers in the Ötztal Alps discovered the frozen body of a man now known as Ötzi, dated to roughly 5,300 years ago. He wasn't dressed in a crude animal hide. He wore a woven grass cloak, a coat and leggings stitched from different animal hides chosen for different purposes, a bearskin hat and shoes insulated with dried grass packed inside for warmth, essentially prehistoric socks. Every piece was selected and constructed for a specific function. This wasn't survival by luck. This was a wardrobe designed by thousands of years of accumulated, tested knowledge about exactly what keeps a human body alive in the cold. So why does this matter to you? Scrolling through this on a phone in a heated room. Because the instinct behind all of it, the drive to layer, to seal gaps, to trap warm air close to the body, to seek out other people when the temperature drops, is still baked into you. It's why a blanket immediately feels better wrapped tightly around your shoulders than loosely draped. It's why your body still instinctively wants to curl toward another warm body on a cold night. That isn't sentimentality. That's 40,000 years of thermal survival strategy, quietly running in the background of an instinct you've never had to think twice about. You are freezing. Except now, you're not. You're warm, dry, and comfortable, and you barely had to think about how you got that way. But somewhere underneath that comfort is a chain of knowledge stretching back tens of thousands of years, built by people who had nothing but grease thread, bone needles, and each other standing between them and a cold that could kill in hours.